Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott. About a year ago, I did a review of the llano dual bay battery charger, concluding that it was a clever way to charge your camera's batteries, but also if you bought it with the batteries with it, it was a good way to get discounted batteries, backup batteries for your camera. Since that point, I've actually used those llano batteries a fair bit in about 3 different camera systems, and I have used them thus far without any kind of issue, which is pretty fantastic. Llano is back with an expanded concept here. It gives you that dual bay battery charger like we had before, but what if you could have that dual bay charger but now be completely off grid? It gives you also the ability to not only charge your camera batteries, but also your phone or tablet or anything similar, small device like that, and you can do it all off grid. They've done that by incorporated the battery charger, but then into a package that has a 12,400 mAh power bank that's implemented into it. So it can output power at a power delivery standard of 20 watts. It can charge your camera battery faster than what you can charge either in camera or in your camera's native charger. And it only costs around 80 bucks for it. Sound interesting? Well, let's dive in. Let's see what's good and what's bad about the llano 2-in-1 dual battery charger. So here's a quick look at what you're going to get when you start to unpack what comes in the charger. And so as I begin to go through the packaging, I found that it included the charger, it includes a pouch, it includes a charging cable, and then also the manual itself. As before, I really like the nice soft touch materials on the exterior of this. It does have a very pleasant feel in the hand. And if you're someone that cares about kind of the tactile sense of thing, I suspect that you'll really like the way that this feels in terms of its materials. As noted, the power bank portion is 12,400 mAh, or it is 44.64 watt hours if you're more accustomed to measuring in that standard. So not like an amazing amount of power, but certainly when you consider that a lot of power banks you can buy will be about 10,000 mAh, it's a little bit larger than what those tend to be. Now, you can use this as just in the same way you would have used this charger, to where you're plugged through the USB-C port into, say, an AC adapter, and so you're just charging it normally, and so you can get the same functionality as you did before. That, of course, is useful because you can do pass-through charging with both charging in and out. However, what's interesting here is that we actually have 2 USB-C ports on the side, and both of those are in and out. And so that provides you a couple of extra functionalities that we'll get to in just a moment. Now, when you insert your battery or batteries into it, what it will do at first is that the LCD screen on the front will come out and it will show you the current state of charge. Now, unfortunately, that is not in a percentage, but it is in just 4 bars. And so 25, 50, 75, and 100%. If you want to actually charge, you click the power button here to start charging the batteries if you're in this remote, unplugged mode. And so that means that you can, if you're just wanting to use this to store additional batteries, maybe if you're packing for a trip or for a shoot and you're bringing along extra batteries, you can put them in there without it, kind of constantly running down the battery. But when you click this button on the front, it will start the charge process. You click it again, and it will actually stop that charge process if you're not looking to recharge the batteries at that moment. And so that is, I like having some control over it. It means that it's, you can control when it's charging and when it's not charging if you're just wanting to use it for transport as well. Now, as far as the actual charging process, I found that it charging one battery, so you can see here it wasn't 100% depleted, it was showing at about 9% in camera, but I put that in, the built-in battery is at 100% state of charge. After it charged that single battery to completion, it was at it used about 36% of the overall capacity. And so that tells me you should be able to completely charge 2 batteries, plus probably get one full 100% charge of your phone at the same time, or maybe some other device. But I use the standard of an iPhone 15, and I calculated that you should be able to charge all 3 of those devices from 0 to 100% without exhausting the built-in battery. Now that charge time, if you're charging multiple batteries, will take you about 2.5 hours to charge from 0 to 100%. Obviously, lower times if you don't have to charge as much. In testing just the charge rate compared to my dedicated Sony charger, I found that it took only slightly longer to charge 2 batteries in the llano charger than it did to charge a battery, a single battery in the Sony charger. So really there's not a whole lot more to explain about the concept there. It's pretty straightforward, pretty plug and play. So let's talk about some things that I like having used it. Well, the first thing I do want to say, because I don't often have a chance when I'm doing third-party battery type reviews to give you a long-term opinion, but now having used the llano branded batteries for about a year, I've had good success with them so far. No issues along the way, and so that's certainly something that I continue to like. Even though this doesn't come with batteries, you certainly can get the inexpensive llano batteries, and I have found that they've held up fine for me so far, and I've had no compatibility issues with them. The previous version required you to be tethered to some kind of charging source, while the new version can function 100% independently. And so that's great, for example, if you're out in the, for example, if you're camping or if you're in some place remote where you don't have access to charging, you can just charge through that. And I will further note, as someone who's done a lot of solar reviews, that there are a number of solar panels that actually happen to have a USB-C output. And so even without any kind of other charge station, you could attach this to a solar panel and charge it independently through that means, which could be a way of sustaining if you're off-grid for an extended period of time. There's also the versatility that comes through this, the ability to potentially have one device to charge your phone, multiple batteries, your earbuds, etc. It could be convenient if you're trying to simplify for packing. As with the previous version, I feel like the pricing is very, very competitive on that. It feels like a good value to be able to get this charger for your actual camera batteries and the built-in power bank, and to get all of that for less than what you would pay for a single first-party charger. I also appreciate the fact that it's plug and play. There's really nothing to figure out other than knowing that you need to click this if you want to turn on the charging. That's really about all you need to know. And so it's a really, really straightforward process. I also appreciate the fact that both of these USB-C ports, they're both in and out. And so what that means is you don't have to worry about, if you're wanting to charge this, for example, you don't have to worry about getting it in the right port. And if you've done that wrong, this is not going to charge. You can plug into either one and you can get a charge out of there. How about some things that I am less happy about? Well, I will say that when I took it out of the box, it was larger than what I anticipated. And in these days, obviously, where your goal is very often to travel as small and light as possible, this is a little bit bigger of a footprint than what I had hoped for. Now, I do recognize you've got to take up a pretty significant amount of space to get two batteries in there, and and to have the place to charge those, you've got to have some space to put the actual power bank in. And so the reality is that yes, that is going to take some internal space. However, the footprint is just, as I said, just a little bit bigger than what I would like. The other thing that I also would prefer is that I don't love the fact that we don't have a more precise percentage-based output for the state of charge for the batteries. I find that 25% intervals is just, it's too big of a chunk to be able to really look at that and have a very accurate estimate of how far you have to get to 100% state of charge. And having a percentage on there would have been nice, both a percentage to tell you what percentage your battery is at, and then the percentage it has to go to charge. And I feel like that is a change that they probably could make relatively simply in the future that could further the functionality of this. So my conclusion is this: I'm always glad to see innovation when it comes to the practical side of photography. These devices that innovate that process and hopefully simplify the process, even though they may not be as sexy as some of the other new gear, they certainly add a lot of practical value to your process. At the same time, I don't feel like the llano 2-in-1 battery charger is necessarily for everyone. Here's who I think it's for. If you're a heavy user that often needs to charge multiple batteries and maybe multiple batteries at once, or you need to be charging batteries while you continue to shoot, I think that this could make sense for you. It's something that you could literally be popping the batteries just into your bag and charging it in here, even if you're off grid, and that could be very, very useful. If you're someone who uses, you're not a power user and you tend to maybe go through one battery a day in your camera, I think that probably just getting an ordinary power delivery power bank that's going to have a much smaller footprint and just running a USB-C cable to your camera probably makes more sense for you. But if you're that power user, I think this could make a lot of sense, and that's probably particularly true if you're more of a video user, as the fastest way to burn through batteries in modern cameras is really by shooting video. And so if you're a videographer, this might make more sense for you than if you're just a photographer. Now, I've tested in the Sony version, but there is also versions for Canon. There's two different types for Fuji, for the two different battery standards that are used there, and then also for Nikon as well. And so for the most part, you should be able to get one that accommodates your camera system if you're using, one of the major systems. If you want more information, you can look in the description down below, and I will link to with some buying links where else you can go and get more information. As always, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and let the light in.